Hello and welcome to the Real World. My name's Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Real World YouTube channel. This is episode 26 of our podcast. We are really excited to talk about the new movie Weird, about Weird Al, and we're also going to break down our top five favorite music biopics. Joining me on this episode is Luke. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How about you, Cameron?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us on this episode. Been waiting for you to come on for a while, and I thought this was kind of
Yes.
perfect for you. Luke is a huge music fanatic. He knows about more bands than I've ever even heard of. So he was the perfect pick for this episode. All right, so we're going to jump straight into our review of Weird, the Al Yankovic story. There's really no movie news that dropped this weekend, nothing big. So I decided we just jump right into our review of this new film. You can watch it right now only on the Roku channel, which is a Roku original. Is the first one I've heard of.
So strange.
But yeah, we're gonna break down our thoughts on this. Anyone can watch it. You don't even have to have a Roku device. You can actually download the app and watch it that way. I just streamed it right off of my iPhone, so that's an easy way to watch it. But yeah, be sure to check it out if you're at all interested in music, biopics. Daniel Radcliffe stars as Weird Al, so my wife is interested because she's a big Harry Potter fan, so she really wants to
That's
check
who
it
that
out.
was.
Yeah,
I didn't.
yeah,
I thought it was a little bit familiar.
yeah.
That makes sense.
Harry Potter right there is Weird Al.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're gonna jump into our non-spoiler review right now. We'll get into spoilers later. We'll give you a spoiler alert whenever we go into the spoilers, but just wanted to give kind of our overall thoughts to start with. All right, so Weird, this new movie, which of course is about the life of Al Yankovic, who is a famous musician, parody musician. He kind of parodies all these old songs, and so it's really interesting because they start this off, very much like your traditional biopic, right? It's
Yeah.
like very straightforward, very it's taken very seriously almost, but
Yeah.
it's definitely comedic, right?
Yeah, you can tell, like, because it's a movie about Weird Al.
Right,
It starts
exactly.
off seriously, but you're like, it's about
Right.
Weird Al. What do you mean?
Right.
It's not gonna be serious,
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
but
exactly. Yeah, it's a lot like one of his songs where
yeah.
it's like, a kind of parody of a biopic in a way.
But and it's not like, and we were talking about this, like it's
Yeah.
not, it wasn't quite like something like Dewey Cox
Right, right.
or like it's not like a really a parody. It still takes itself seriously enough for it to be
Yes.
like this is about a person, but at the same time,
Right.
it's it's very
Yeah, it's
much
ridiculous. It goes way
comedically
over the
fine.
top.
Yeah,
It's all this crazy stuff, which we'll get into the details later, but it's very funny, first of all. I was laughing the whole way through.
yeah, I know.
I mean, I thought it was really funny, really well done. The jokes, totally landed. The performances, I think, are excellent. I think everyone played their parts really well, especially Daniel Radcliffe,
Yeah.
because there are some kind of what I'm talking about is like there are some kind of dramatic moments where
Mhm.
he like gets very emotional and like these things happen, but they're kind of silly at the
Mhm.
same time. So yeah, it was an interesting balance, and I find that that's a really difficult balance to strike
Yeah,
in
it really
movies like this.
was.
Instead of just making it laughs nonstop, just trying to make everything funny,
Mhm.
balancing that out with some like real emotion was interesting,
Yeah,
and I thought it was done really well.
yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
think it definitely surpassed. Like I had a sort of bar for it where I was like, it's
Mhm.
gonna be good, but it's on the Roku channel. It's made by
Right.
Funny or Die. That's like it was
Right.
really good,
Yeah.
especially, and I think it did kind of lose its way a little bit for me and towards
There
the middle
there were
half.
yeah, there were definitely some moments where it started to drag. Although I think the runtime is under 2 hours.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like an
So
hour,
yeah,
50
yeah,
minutes or something like that.
yeah, yeah. So it didn't totally
Yeah.
overstay its welcome,
Mm-mm.
but there definitely were a few pacing moments where I was like, it's a little starting to lose me a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But really well done technically, well shot,
Hmm.
very well edited, easy to follow.
Yeah.
There weren't a whole lot of like flashbacks or anything like that. It was a pretty linear narrative, but yeah, really well done on the technical level. Of course, the music. I thought it was smart that they used Weird Al's voice when he's singing.
Hmm.
It wasn't Daniel Radcliffe trying to
Yeah.
put on a voice.
Yeah.
A lot of biopics, I think, unless you can get your actors really honed in on getting their voices right, it's hard for an actor to really emulate, especially a specific voice like Weird Al,
Hmm.
such a specific sound. So I thought that was a clever move that they just had him kind of lip sync. That was a good move.
Yeah. I really like too how it does. It kind of takes. I really like that it didn't fall into the trope because I think it's something that we're going to end up talking about a lot.
Hmm.
Is the trope of like it covers her whole life and it feels really
Right.
messy, and
Yes.
it like even though it does start from the beginning of his life, it's like
Yeah.
it's very much. It felt it did the pacing wise, it wasn't difficult at all. Even though
Right.
I do feel like it kind of delved into some cliches that didn't really have
Right.
to. Like
Sure, sure. And I
you
think,
know,
but some of those I think were kind of intentional
yeah,
because
yeah,
again, they're kind of making fun of music biopics. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because it's like, here's what happens in every movie by music biopic,
Mhm.
right? And they kind of hit all those things, but they kind of twist it in an interesting way
Yeah,
that makes it more comedic and kind of fun. So, yeah, overall, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would
yeah.
honestly probably give this one 4 stars.
Four
I mean, it's
stars.
pretty, maybe 3.5, 4. It's right in that range for me right
Yeah.
now. I haven't officially logged it in Letterboxd yet,
Mhm.
but I'm right there in that range because I had a great time watching it.
Yeah, me too. I think, yeah, it just, I really liked it. I really
Yeah,
thought it was good.
and I know you're
And
not you're not as big of a Weird Al fan as I am though,
no,
because
but
I
I mean, yeah, but
really
then
I enjoy listening to his music
that's
genuinely.
true. It does help. It
So
does certainly help.
you as someone who doesn't as much, you probably were a little more not into it as
Yeah,
I
but
am.
I loved, I don't know, there's just some really parts I loved about it.
Yeah.
It was a solid seven for me. Solid 7 out of 10, I think.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the beginning I was more like four, but after the whole
Okay.
thing, I think it was like, it was good. Not four, like eight, but
Yeah.
a seven,
Yeah.
seven, four and a half, 3.5 out of
Three
four
and a
stars,
half out of
five
five.
stars.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool. Okay. That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's get into a little bit of the spoilers now. So, spoiler alert. We're going to kind of get into the plot details, some of the cameos, a lot of the cameos. There's
Hmm.
so many here.
There are.
So, if you don't want to be spoiled on the movie, go ahead, download the Roku app or turn on your Roku device. Check it out. It's free right now. Just watch it. And then come on back and join us for the spoilers.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so spoiler talk. So there were so many great moments here. I watched an interview with Weird Al about a week ago in anticipation of this movie coming out. So I knew a little bit of like what was true, what wasn't, because I knew that it was going to embellish some things and some things
Yeah.
were just going to be totally not true at all.
Yeah.
So the traveling accordion salesman, who
That is so
you thought
cool.
was
I
totally
thought that
a
was so
fake
made
part of
up.
it,
It was not.
it was a real thing. A traveling accordion salesman came to his house when he was like 10, and that's where he got his first accordion. And I thought that was a great moment in the movie. You know, it's a great moment between him and his dad too was in there, and
Mhm.
so I enjoyed that scene. Of course, the stuff that was embellished, like the whole Pablo Escobar section, was just it
That
became
was
an action
great.
film.
I absolutely loved the ending. How him being
Yes,
assassinated. Perfect.
the
Perfect.
assassination.
Because it's like,
That's great.
because that's the problem that so many have is they live such long lives and
Right, it drags
you
on and
can't
on.
talk about their entire life. How are you gonna do that? They don't have to. It's just
Right.
he dies. It works out so perfect.
It's great. Yes. Weird Al is still alive for those who watched the movie
Yes,
and thought he might
yes.
have actually passed away.
No.
Did not happen.
By being assassinated by Madonna.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Madonna is not a drug cartel leader either, that we know of at least. So,
I haven't looked into it. I can say.
so yeah, great stuff. I liked all that stuff that they added that was just super silly and fun. And,
Mhm.
you know, the whole, I like one of my favorite scenes is when he first comes up with his first song, which is My Bologna.
Yeah.
The way that whole scene played out, it was
Yes,
great
it's
with his
so
roommates
good.
and everything. So great. Um, any specific scenes that you want to point out that you want to talk about as
Oh
far
dear.
as spoilers or no spoilers?
Let me think. Yeah, I love the whole going off on the to like the where did he even go? Just off to the jungle
Oh
somewhere.
yeah, like Colombia
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He went to Colombia, and it was just like
it became
that was
Rambo.
yeah,
It was
it's
just so
just
awesome.
totally like, and I think it didn't necessarily work entirely for me. It felt a little jarring, like even though it was
Yeah,
comedically inclined, like it was still
right.
like, but at the same time, I thought that was really good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that was
and
fun.
yeah, I agree with you. The whole bit where I love how I love the polka party that they
Oh
had at the beginning of the
yes,
film. Whenever he's like a
right,
teenager and he's a
right.
closeted accordion player, that was
And
just
polka's like the
polka's like
cool
everyone.
music.
Yeah,
Everyone's into it.
it's so perfect. It subverts it. It doesn't always subvert the expectations how I would like it to, but whenever it
Right.
does, it really does really
Yeah,
well, and
definitely,
for
definitely.
sure.
Um, the the pool party. That's where we get
Mm,
tons of these cameos, which
yeah,
there's cameos throughout the entire film. All these great comedic actors playing these
including
popular.
Weird Al.
Yeah,
Yeah,
including he's
yeah,
the record executive, right?
yeah.
So
One
that was
criticize
great.
him.
Yeah, him and Will Forte are like the two record executives.
Mhm.
But yeah, you get Thomas Lennon in there. You get all kinds of great. David Desmalchian as the bass player from Queen shows up. He was great. Jack Black as Wolfman Jack, which was maybe my favorite
He's
one.
the only name I recognize out of the ones you just mentioned. I don't keep up with actors too
That was
well,
great.
but
Yeah, Pee Wee Herman. I mean, all these like
mhm.
I think that was Conan O'Brien as Andy Warhol.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty
Oh,
sure it
that was
was
Andy
him.
Warhol. I'm so proud of
Yeah,
him. I recognize that.
yeah,
If it
yeah,
was him,
yeah. So a
interesting.
lot of great. If you're at all familiar with pop culture in the '80s specifically, when
Yeah,
this movie takes
early '80s.
place, you'll get a kick out of a lot of these cameos. So yeah, a lot of good. Was there a favorite cameo for you that stuck out as like
I like Tiny Tim.
Tiny
I always
Tim
like
was
Tiny Tim.
great. Yes, that was a good one. Yeah, lots of good ones in there. So a lot of fun cameos, definitely to watch out for.
Mhm.
Uh, you already mentioned the ending, which I think was just spot on. Just
Yeah.
killed me because not only is he assassinated at an award show where he gets an award for being
That's
like
the thing you mentioned at the beginning of the movie.
right.
So many things come full circle.
Yes, that's true. There's a lot of setup and payoff here
Yeah,
that
there
worked
is.
really well. Um, and then as soon as they go into the credits, it's like this very sad song. It's all these black and white pictures of him
Mhm.
growing up. It was just they nailed it. Again, that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about like there's drama, but it's always like with an undercurrent of comedy,
Yeah.
to it. So yeah, really, really enjoyed this movie, had a blast with it. Be sure to let us know what you thought of Weird, the Al Yankovic story in the comments below. We'd be happy to have a conversation with you about the movie there. All right, so now that our review of Weird, the Al Yankovic story is over, we are going to jump into our top 5 favorite music biopics of all time. So this is a popular genre. It's been around for a long time. It seems to kind of go with ebbs and flows. Like right now, it seems like we're kind of popular with this Elvis movie that just came out. And so there's quite a few of these. Bohemian Rhapsody came out a couple years ago, Rocket Man. There's all these recent ones that have come out. But there's a lot of these movies that have been out there for a while. So we wanted to break down our top 5 coming off the Weird Al movie and breaking down kind of some of our favorites. So before we get into our top 5, I have a few honorable mentions I wanted to mention. The one that was closest to making it was Crossroads. This is a movie from the 80s. It's got Ralph Macchio from The Karate Kid. A lot of people know him. And it's a great story, loosely based on possibly real events. Robert Johnson was a legendary blues musician, guitarist who supposedly made a deal with the devil at this crossroads that he came to, a literal crossroads in his life and in reality down in the South. And so it's a really interesting story, really more about Ralph Macchio's character kind of learning about this. And there's an actor named Joe Seneca who plays a real life guy named Willie Brown, who is friends with Robert Johnson. And he kind of tells him about this legend. And Ralph Macchio wants to become the greatest guitar player ever. And so they make this, cross country journey down there to where this crossroads is. And it's just a good, like, kind of buddy road movie, basically. Really low budget. Walter Hill directed it. Is one of my favorite directors, and so that one's really fun. It's got a lot of good comedy, good drama, great music as well. I'm a huge fan of blues music, and so that one is full of that stuff. So that one was really, really close to making it to my list. Next was Yankee Doodle Dandy. This is a fun movie with James Cagney about musician way back in the kind of the 1900s era is when he came up and kind of did the vaudeville thing. He was kind of involved in all that. And it's a really interesting story, really well told on screen. Michael Curtiz directed that one, and he did a great job. Also, Coal Miner's Daughter. This is one that my mom really likes. So I've seen this a couple of times, and it's about the life of Loretta Lynn, who's a country musician. Sissy Spacek plays her in the film. She does a great job. Tommy Lee Jones is in this, one of his earliest roles when he's really young. So this one came out, I think, early 80s. It's a really well done biopic, definitely worth checking out. Big fan of The Doors, starring Val Kilmer. This one is really, really good.
I've been wanting to watch that one. I haven't seen it.
You should watch it. You would really like it. It goes deep into his life,
Hmm.
where he came from, his whole experience with the Doors and what happened to him. And yeah, Val Kilmer. It's probably one of his best performances. I think he does a really good job. Really got into character for that one.
Hmm.
So yeah, the Doors is definitely one to check out as well. Next up is Ray. The movie about Ray Charles, starring Jamie Foxx in the role that I think won him an Oscar for Best Actor. Playing a blind musician had to have been a challenge. And
Yeah.
so, he did a really good job there playing that role. And that's definitely a one worth checking out as well. Also wanted to mention, of course, the new Elvis movie with Austin Butler, Tom Hanks. I think that one is really interesting visually, specifically. I think that one's really engaging, just the way it's edited and shot. Baz Luhrmann, I think, did a really good job making it stand out and making it different, adding a lot of his own personal style to it, which I thought fit the character pretty well too. So yeah, that one was enjoyable to watch as well. I got a kick out of it. Selena with Jennifer Lopez. This is kind of her breakout acting role. She was, of course, a pop star before this and has been acting ever since. But she did a very good job playing Selena, and her story is a tragic one, but it's really well done on film. Couple that I just watched recently, Respect. This is the film about Aretha Franklin. And Jennifer Hudson was actually handpicked by Aretha before she passed away to play her in a biopic. So they actually knew each other after Jennifer Hudson had her time on American Idol, and she got the role in Dreamgirls. That's kind of where she broke out and won Best Supporting Actress. And then she became friends with Aretha Franklin and got to know her personally, and she did an excellent job playing her in the film. Really, really good. That one has such a, it kind of follows the tropes of your typical biopic, but um, it has a great ending because she really had a spiritual awakening towards the end of her life. She
Hmm.
became an alcoholic, and the whole movie ends with her singing "Amazing Grace." That's the
Hmm.
final scene in the film. So it's really, really well done, really impactful. I watched that one. I think it's on Paramount Plus. So that one I enjoyed a lot. Another one I enjoyed was Get On Up. This is the James Brown story. Chadwick Boseman did a phenomenal
Really?
job.
I didn't know he.
Yeah,
That's. I didn't know he did that.
yeah, one of his last roles. He did it
Hmm.
just a few years ago. So he really inhabited James Brown. Not just his physicality, the way he walks, the way he danced on stage, which he was so well known for, but just I feel like emotionally he really got into that character and played him very well, very convincingly. The way he spoke and everything, just very, very well done performance and well done movie. I think like all biopics, it's a little long. I feel like that's kind of typically
Yeah.
is the problem with
It's
these.
tough,
You're mentioning they're trying to cover the whole life of a person, so it's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
But it's still a very, very well made and one that's also worth watching. All right, so that's all I had for honorable mentions. Let's jump into our top five. Luke, do you want to kick us off? All
Sure.
right, cool. Luke's going to kick us off. Here's his number five.
Okay, my number five. You just recently mentioned it, and you kind of
Oh,
touched on some of my points. But
okay.
well, yeah. Well, first, okay, disclaimer: I've only seen five biopics by musicians, so I will just be kind of ranking. I like most of them. The first
Right.
one, I'd a little more iffy on.
Okay.
But I like it. It's Elvis.
Okay,
Elvis
cool.
with
Yeah.
the new Elvis movie is my number five,
Sure.
and I think it does so many things really well. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's like you said, just visually amazing,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Right.
Um, it's and Austin Butler, he does a great job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's probably one of the best method actors, and
Yeah.
just for that role specifically. I
Right.
mean, actually, I don't even know. I don't know nothing about method actors, but but yeah, I really dug the film. I dug yeah, it's too long.
Yeah.
It does that thing of just covering the artist's entire life, and Elvis's life is just so
There
huge
was
and
so much.
sprawling,
Yeah. Right.
and even though it only covers like this, it really only covers like the span of a couple of years, or like
Yeah.
a 10, 20 years,
Right. Right. Like
maybe
you
a
see him
bit
as a
more.
kid briefly,
Yeah,
but then most of it is his adult life.
but it's just, yeah, and it would have worked as like a three-part like series, I think, or something like
Yeah.
that. But
Right.
it's just too completely long, and
Yeah.
It's but I really liked a lot of parts of it. It's
Hmm.
just yeah, that's Elvis number five. I would give
Yeah.
that one like a 6 out of 10 or so. I
Okay.
would say it's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
good.
yeah. It's good. Yeah, I like Tom Hanks in it, and you weren't. Yeah, a lot
I
of
don't
people
know.
are iffy on his
I'm iffy
performance.
on Tom Hanks. It was
Yeah,
just I don't know. It
yeah.
just didn't really feel right. I
Gotcha,
can't. Sorry, I
gotcha.
know that's not really like the music or the movie critiquers
That's fine.
response, but yeah, it just didn't really feel
No,
right
yeah,
for
that's
me.
fine. That's fine. And I think, but like you said, visually, it remains engaging throughout
Yeah.
for sure. I'm gonna jump into my number five. All right, my number
Number
five
five.
is Inside Llewyn Davis. So
Wow.
this is a great movie. I've seen a lot of these, as you can tell from my honorable mentions.
Hmm.
Um, this one is really good. It's Coen Brothers, Oscar Isaac, and this one we counted it because it's not technically a direct biopic of someone's life, but it is loosely based on a guy named Dave Van Ronk, who lived in Greenwich Village, 60s, that whole kind of folk music scene. So, um, you know, he played at places like Oscar Isaac's character does, right before Bob Dylan became,
Yeah.
Bob Dylan. So, it's kind of covers that whole time era of history. It's really just, it's a simple story about a guy. It's just a guy's life. It's just kind of a peek into this guy's life. And he's kind of, what I like about the movie is he's kind of an unlikable character.
Yeah.
He's like, he's not really a great guy. He kind of just, he's trying to make it, right? That's
Yeah.
really his goal. He's like trying to make it as a professional musician. And people just aren't having it. He's not having the opportunities he wants. Um, all these things in his life are going wrong, with his ex-girlfriend, and with his relationship with his dad isn't great. All this stuff that it covers, that I thought was really interesting. It kind of becomes a little bit of a road movie at one point.
Hmm.
It's got a great supporting cast.
It
It's very
does.
well written. It's super well directed. It has a really specific look to it. The music in it is wonderful. The soundtrack I could listen to all day. But yeah, it had to make my top five. It's just not my favorite of the biopics. It's in my top five, but it's not my absolute favorite. So it was definitely in there. It went back and forth between five and four, but ultimately I ended up at number five. It kind of has those dark comedy elements that I enjoy. Honestly, I just haven't watched it in a while.
Hmm.
So maybe if I rewatched it, it would go up a little bit higher, but definitely had to make my top five. So that's my number five.
Cool.
What's your number four?
My number four is Weird Al, the Weird Al Yankovic
Oh,
Story,
sweet.
because
Awesome.
this is the fifth music biopic I've seen.
Awesome.
But yeah, it was. I guess I already kind of covered all the
We already
bases.
talked about it a little bit,
A little
but
hard,
why
but
is it at four and
as
maybe
a
not
four,
a little
it's
higher or lower?
I think it's the most like fun, most real fun I've
Oh
really
yeah,
had with a music biopic
absolutely.
because they're all so dramatic.
They can be very heavy.
They can be very
Yeah.
heavy, and especially on the list I have, it's just
Yeah.
very heavy, and
Yeah.
but yeah, and I think it does it without just straight up like making fun of it, like something like Dewey
Right.
Cox.
Yes.
But it just manages to be fun. It's real lighthearted, and it's self-deprecating. I'm sure Weird Al had
Oh, he was
some
very
hand in
involved from
it.
what I understand.
Yeah.
He's a producer on it, and
Hmm.
he was involved in pretty much every aspect of the filmmaking. So
Yeah.
he and Daniel Radcliffe obviously had a lot of conversations, and yeah, from what I understand, he was very heavily involved. And it's
Yeah.
very much him. It's like his personality so comes through in the movie, and that's
Hmm.
what I like about it too. Is a lot of these, it's like the person passed away like years ago or decades ago in some cases. So you don't really know like how would they feel about this. Sometimes their families
Yeah.
involved, which is cool, but it's kind of like having someone on set who this movie is about. I
Yeah.
feel like is more true like to who they
Depends on
are.
who the person is too. If they're
That's
like,
true. That's a good point. Yeah, they can embellish things that they, or not talk about certain things that they don't want to talk about. So I think
yeah.
that's why usually they wait until after the person has passed so they can
Hmm.
delve into those things.
Yeah, but I think you're right. In this case,
Mm,
it's definitely worked.
yeah, for sure. Great. Okay, now moving on to my number four. a movie I literally just watched last night for the first time. Love and Mercy. This one blew me away. I was amazed by this film. It is such a well done biopic, and it just happens to be about one of the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson. And I knew nothing about him. I knew the Beach Boys music. I liked their music a lot, but I didn't really know about their personal lives at all. And so getting to dive into who he was, what he went through, this was such a breath of fresh air because I had just watched Get On Up and Respect, and those are very much kind of your traditional biopics, like go through the person's life, hit the low points and kind of rise back up to fame or whatever. And this one was so different because the narrative is two different time eras, right? It's like him when he's really young and him when he's much older. And so you get both aspects of his life and what he went through. Paul Dano plays the young Brian Wilson, and then John Cusack is the older Brian Wilson, and both of them do a phenomenal job. I think it's their best performances I've ever seen them give. I mean, John Cusack, I've always liked him, but I've never seen him give like a great performance, and this I feel like was a great performance. Same thing with Paul Dano. I've liked him in everything I've seen him in, but this one he just kind of took it to the next level. It's really fun and it can be funny, but it also has those, of course, very intensely dramatic moments as well. So I felt it was very well balanced, very well paced. I never got bored watching it. It's right at 2 hours. Most of these are like 2.5 or more.
Yeah.
So it's right at 2 hours. Just really well done. Every level, the way it's shot, the way it's edited. Of course, the music is great, and performances, direction. I'd never heard of this director before, but he's only actually done 3 movies. I looked him up, but he just did a great job telling the story on screen. Elizabeth Banks, I'll mention her as well, is great in it. Paul Giamatti, who I always like as well. So, yeah, just all around really solid film. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars because I just was thoroughly entertained and engaged in the story. Really well done.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Cool.
That's a So my number 3 is Love and Mercy.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So
Perfect.
I'll give my thoughts on that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And I think the Beach Boys, they always meant so much to me. I mean, not no, actually that's not true. I went through a while where I was like, the Beach Boys suck. I hate the Beach Boys because I was a Beatles fan. I was like, it's stupid.
Oh,
It's stupid
sure.
rivalry. It's stupid
Right.
rivalry. Never get into the Beatles versus the Beach Boys. They're both great.
Yes.
But I really like I really like the Beach Boys more. And I think this hearing, I already kind of knew about his story going into this, but it's just hearing it, it's Brian Wilson is just he was an absolute genius, or he is, but and it's just it was just really crazy how it's like it's so non-linear but manages to be like really cohesive at the same time, and it's so all over the place, but it's and it really is absolutely, it's rare that a musician gets like the kind of biopic they deserve. And I think he definitely did in this. I think it's one of the best like psychological biopics. You really get to see inside of his head, where he kind of loses it, and and also just the mental illness he dealt with, and it almost kind of glorifies it, which is at some points. But I think overall it's like pretty.
I think it's pretty well balanced.
Yeah. I think yeah, but I think it does a good job of showing its negative effects. And, but yeah, it's just and yeah, but so there might be some bias for me because it's I love the Beach Boys. Pet Sounds is one of my favorite albums ever, but at the same time, it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, it goes all into Pet Sounds, which is so cool.
Yeah, I was nerding.
It was so good. Yeah, that's great. Great pick. Yeah, great movie.
Yep.
My number 3 is The Sound of Music.
Interesting.
So not a lot of
you got to tell me about this because I have no idea what The Sound of Music is about.
Oh, you've never seen it?
Never even seen it.
Okay, interesting. I'll have to let you borrow it.
Yeah.
It's a really, first of all, just great movie, gorgeous looking movie. I think it was all shot on location in Austria, which is where it takes place. Just beautiful countryside, wonderful. So it's just a great technical looking movie. The choreography, there's all these dance numbers and everything. It's just great. But it's about the Von Trapp family. So there's a family of traveling musicians back in the 1940s in Europe. So they're a traveling family of musicians. This is about them at the point where their mother had passed away and their father hired a nanny to come in and watch over them. So Julie Andrews, Mary Poppins herself, comes in and she plays this nanny. So she's the main character. She's a nun who's kind of troubled. She doesn't really fit in with the other nuns. So she takes this job as a nanny over these children. I don't know how many there are. I want to say at least 10 children, maybe 9. But a bunch of children she has to look after. And so Christopher Plummer plays the father. He's very strict disciplinarian, kind of militant type guy. And she kind of clashes with him because she's very much a free spirit. She introduces them to music and all this kind of artsy stuff, that they're not really used to. And so it's just about that kind of juxtaposition of these two characters and how they're kind of raising these children differently. And the backdrop, though, is, again, like I said, 1940s Europe. World War II starts. So the whole ending of the film is them kind of on the run from the Nazis. So it's really interesting, very different kind of biopic. Obviously, it's a straight up musical, so they do just break out into song randomly. So it has that element to it that makes it unique. And yeah, just like I said, great looking film. Performances are all wonderful, even by the kids, which getting children actors to pull off their performances is always difficult. So they do that really well here. Robert Wise, I believe, is the director of this, and he went on to direct many great films. But yeah, this is probably my favorite of his. It's a 5-star film for me. One of my favorites of all time. One of the best all time musicals, and it does happen to be based on a true story. So it definitely made the cut. Yeah. So that's my number 3. Cool. You'll definitely have to check it out. It's a must see.
It sounds
movie.
really
it's
interesting.
A classic.
It's good. That's incredible.
Yep. On to your number 2.
My number 2, it's about someone whose favorite movie was The Sound of Music. This is Control. It's about a guy named Ian Curtis.
Okay.
He was in this band called Joy Division. And it's definitely the heaviest movie on this list. It's very black and white, and it's he committed suicide whenever I think he was only like 23. But in his brief time he made a lot of really incredible music. It means a lot to me, but it's just the whole thing's shot in black and white, and it's based in like early 70s, early to mid, basically 70s Europe. And it's very dreary,
right?
But it kind of deals with a lot of just like the themes of mental illness that he kind of dealt with, and just a lot of like existential sort of fears, because he had epilepsy. And just his kind of dealing with that. And so it was definitely very hard to watch, but at the same time it was absolutely incredible. I guess my only real criticism with it is it's like it's a little too Wikipedia core, sort of like
you're just going through his
like
Wikipedia
sometimes you kind of get something that happens without like really seeing the characters,
I gotcha,
motivations, and it sort of just happens, which is like an issue I kind of had with it. It kind of definitely knocked it down a bit for me, but at the same time, the music and story means so much to me, and it's executed well enough to where it's like like I'd say awesome. I gave it a little bit. I gave it a number 2 spot.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, I'll have to check that one out because I have not seen that one either. So
it's definitely very low budget too, which I liked. It was the most low budget movie on this list.
Okay.
It was.
When was the movie made? Do you know?
I think it was like 2007.
Okay. So pretty recently, not too far.
Yeah, but it's cool.
Interesting movie. Yeah. Where did you watch it? HBO Max, or was it?
I think it was on Tubi.
Tubi. Okay.
I had
Tubi. Yeah, they've got a lot of movies.
They do have a lot of movies on there.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Cool. All right, great. Number 2. My number 2 is Tick Tick Boom. This movie, like Control for you, this one like hit me at the right time, I feel like, because it's about Jonathan Larson, who wrote Rent and all these great musicals, and it's about him turning 30, and I turned 30 this year. So it came out like right when I was about to turn 30, just like him. So I was like very much connecting with him on that level. The music stuff obviously connect with a little bit. So it's just great. It's about following your dreams. It's about the AIDS epidemic in the 90s, and that's the kind of backdrop of the story. His friends that are going through that. Andrew Garfield just does an unbelievable job. I think he deserved Best Actor for
Yeah.
this. It was really great. Did all his own singing, all his own piano playing. He just really went all in on this guy. It's such an inspiring story. It certainly has, you know, the heavy themes that I just mentioned, but that I think is really well balanced with um, the kind of lighthearted moments. A lot of levity in there. There's a lot of, you know, just fun stuff. Like he was a guy. There's a scene. One of my favorite scenes is when they're at this party and he just breaks into song. He just makes up a song on the spot,
Yeah,
and
I
he would
know. I
actually
love
do
that
that.
part.
He would actually
Yeah.
do that at parties, you know. So that was something that I just really liked, really connected with. I liked Alexandra Shipp as his girlfriend. I think she did a great job as
Mm,
well.
yeah.
The whole cast is really talented. Vanessa Hudgens is in there, and a lot of great actors. Lin Manuel Miranda directed this and wrote it. He's the guy behind Hamilton. Just a super talented guy. You know, wrote all the music for this. Obviously, the stuff that's not Jonathan Larson's because some of his actual music is in the movie as well. But just they got such a great talented group of cast and crew together. I feel like for this movie that they made for Netflix. It's on Netflix right now if you want to watch it. And just really put a lot of passion into it. It's very, you can tell like they really care about this person and his story. Whereas I feel like some of them can feel a little like, yeah, we're just kind of making a movie about this guy because he's popular or whatever. This guy wasn't really that popular. I mean, he had Rent, which was a huge hit, but he passed away shortly after. So it's another kind of tragic, short life that he lived.
Do you know how
But
he passed away?
I think it was a brain aneurysm.
Oof.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a random thing just happened one day. I don't even think he made it to 40. I think it was soon after he was like 34, 35. But yeah, so definitely, you know, lot of drama, but mixed in with the comedy. That balance worked very well paced. Great music. Just I've listened to the soundtrack a number of times over and over again, and very meaningful. Just a meaningful story about real life issues, real life people. All the That's another thing is the actors are just the performances are so natural. I feel like it's so easy for me to watch this movie because I can just get into it really easily. Um, but yeah, it had to make the list. So yeah, that was definitely my. It was back and forth between this being my number one because again, I do have that kind of personal connection with it. I feel like, but yeah, had to be number two.
Wow, that's yeah, dude, hands down my favorite musical.
Yeah,
It's
right,
so good.
right.
It's yeah, I absolutely love yeah, and it's just yeah, so many it's just so does it treats musicals as an art form and it does
Right.
really unique things with it and just the concept and no they always it always feels meaningful
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, just it's so
Yeah,
good. I can't add anything what you just
yeah.
said. I think it's
The way they shoot it too, and they have these sequences where it will become a musical, and like the sets will kind of change,
yeah.
like, and
It's
it'll
all like
become,
a
yeah,
theater thing.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And they use every tool at their disposal to make this as interesting visually as they can, and telling the story with the music. So just that combo, I thought it worked so well. So yeah, that's my number two.
Yeah.
All right, on to your number one. What you
Okay,
got?
well, I guess kind of going full circle here. My favorite is Inside Llewyn Davis. My
Oh,
favorite one.
great. Okay,
And you know,
perfect.
like you said,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a biopic, you know, because it's loosely
Right.
based on a guy, but
Yeah.
you know, if we count it, you know, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like what you said about I know because you said it, this is kind of what you like that was kind of control for you, but this is kind of Tick Tick Boom for me because
Oh, okay.
it's very because I just watched it last night and
Okay, cool.
it's very I like while I was watching it, it did not click to me at all. Like
Mm,
I
mm.
was just like, why is this guy doing these things? He's just messing his whole life up,
Right,
you know. And
right,
it's just, but it's just, but it just as after the end, I
right.
completely the whole concept of it clicked with me, and it just I
Yeah.
all of a sudden I just felt such a deep and harrowing like connection
Right. No.
to Llewyn Davis,
Yeah.
and it's just of just living your life on this loop and of
Mm,
just you know and not you know owning your mistakes, not owning what you
right.
do, you
Yes,
know, and it's
definitely. Yeah, because
just
like I said, he's kind of unlikable. That's why I think on
yeah,
first viewing it's kind of like,
yeah,
what? But then when you think of it, you're like, wait, I do that all the time. Like
he's me,
he's me. You're right.
yeah.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
and he's yeah, it's just yeah, and of course like it's just I absolutely love that just the New York folk scene in
Oh
general
yeah,
is just super
sure.
cool. Not always like some of the green, even some of like the Greenwich Village stuff. I
Hmm.
kind of feel wish it would like it kind of got into some of it because I just from some of the things I've read, it's just
Sure.
it was very much there's some very artistic parts, and but some of
Sure.
it was kind of just a little too like traditional, like oh yeah, we're
Right.
playing. But
Sure.
and some of the soundtrack, you mentioned the soundtrack. Tell me, are Mumford and Sons on the soundtrack?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They had a
See,
big hand in this. Yeah.
that's why I didn't like it. I'm not a big Mumford and Sons fan, but
Gotcha.
because I was just like that sounds like Mumford and Sons. I was listening in the background like, but of course that like in no way, and it's still wonderful songs they're covering, and
Mm, hmm.
but yeah, that was it very much struck me to my core in a
Mm,
lot of ways, and it's just beautiful scenery, very
hmm.
very depressing, but in a
Yeah, even the look of the film has that kind of washed out
yeah.
look, like, desaturated color palette, like it's not
Mm.
vibrant or anything.
And I
It's
found especially the road trip
mm,
portion of the film, which kind of felt like it was going off
mm-hmm,
on a sort of tangent. And
mm-hmm.
I just love how many people he meets.
Yeah,
It's super what I always kind of the romanticized version of it in my head. I always imagine like just like meeting all these random people,
sure,
because a lot of my life I see sort of the same people, but
sure.
it's but I absolutely love that. I absolutely love how many just different people he runs into and
Yeah.
the interactions he has.
Mm-hmm.
Um and yeah, it's a but yeah, it's my number one.
That's a
I
great,
am
it's a
super
great pick.
curious. I have no idea what your number one is.
Yeah, so my number one is a movie called Walk the Line.
Wow.
So Walk the Line came out in 2005. So I would have been a teenager. I would have been like 13. Um, and was just really getting into guitar playing, music, all that stuff. And we were living in Texas, and a lot of people I knew loved Johnny Cash.
Right.
And I was like, who's this guy? So started to get introduced to his music through this film.
Mm.
This was really the first time I'd ever heard of him, knew what he was about, and it just really struck a chord with me. No pun intended. It really, I just really got into who he was, his life. I think the film is just does a fantastic job of hitting all those biopic tropes. Again, this is before I'd really seen many of these,
Yeah.
so it was a new thing to me. And but to me, this one still holds up because the direction, the writing. James Mangold is one of my favorite writer directors. He did Logan, he did Ford versus Ferrari, all these
Mm.
great
Oh, really?
biopics. Um, to me, he just really knows how to tell a story cinematically, and he got the perfect cast to do it. So
Mm.
Joaquin Phoenix, I think it's easily his best performance. He's doing all his own singing, all his own guitar playing. Reese Witherspoon, I think, did a great job as June Carter as well. And that relationship between those two characters and kind of the journey they go on together is the heart of the film. And it's basically what's going to make or break the movie for you, I think.
Mm.
And so for me, that totally works all the way through. Um, Again, it's an interesting time in history too, in the 50s, where he was coming up with Elvis and all these guys. There were no rock stars at this point, right? They were like the first ones. So
Mm.
it's kind of like this is the rock star life. Like you're thrown into it, and there was no template for it. So this is what happened to these guys,
Yeah.
So you got Jerry Lee Lewis in there. You got all these great other characters. Waylon Jennings, who I like a lot. So country and kind of rock, mix in there together. These guys are kind of from the South that were kind of playing on, what was happening with the blues music at the time, and all this different stuff, kind of creating their own new genre. And so it's just historically interesting. The emotional elements work really well. The whole opening scene when he's younger, what happens with him and his brother, and his parents and everything, I thought was really impactful as well. So it's just a movie that to me fires on all cylinders. Every aspect of it: cast, crew, writing, direction, cinematography, the editing, the music. It all works really well together to tell this story. I don't feel like it's too long. I don't know actually how long it is. I know it's a little over 2 hours, I believe, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like every time I watch it, I get invested. I get back into it. And it kind of, again, it was one of those movies that kind of ignited my passion for music when I was a teenager, because I got a guitar when I was 11, and I picked it up and I was like, oh wow, this is really hard. And I put it and it collected dust for like a year until I was 13. We moved to Texas, started learning, and then this movie came along and I learned basically all of Johnny Cash's songs. I learned how to play all of them almost. So all his big hits at least. So and I would play them for friends all the time. Like, hey, you know that Johnny Cash song? Play that for us. And so I'd play them all the time for all these people. And so yeah, I just have a huge connection to this film just personally, but also just as a movie by itself, I think it works really, really well. So yeah, Walk the Line's my number one.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I see. I think I might have been on my list had I had like
Mm,
finished it. I watched actually a
mm.
good portion of it,
Did
but
you?
the DVD I had it on was
So
kind
it's
of
scratched
shoddy,
up.
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was yeah. I think just from before I remember it being it was very much not like tropey,
Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
tropey biopic. It
Right.
felt very natural in what
Mm-hmm.
it did.
Definitely.
And yeah, and that's just this felt very very weighty.
Right, right. Yeah, it definitely has a
Um,
lot of weight to it. There's moments of levity too, but
mhm.
it's overall a
Yeah,
little
it's
more.
got a great balance.
Yeah, I think it has a good balance, and yeah, I'll let you borrow it. I've got the Blu-ray, so you can take it home and so you can finish it.
Cool.
Tell me
Yeah.
what you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, folks. Well, those are our top 5 favorite music biopics of all time. Be sure to leave your list in the comments below. Also, give us a like, hit the subscribe button down below, hit the bell to get notifications of all our videos here at The Real World. Thank you so much. Thanks, Luke, for joining me. This was
Thank you
fun.
for having me, man. This has been a wonderful experience for
Yeah,
me.
we've been wanting to have Luke on for a while
Yeah,
because we
I'm
talk
excited.
movies
It
with
was
Luke
great.
every week. Me and
Yeah,
Carson will talk movies with you. So really fun. Can't wait to have you back.
absolutely.
Yeah, so again, be sure to give us a like, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get notifications. Give us a comment as well. We want to have a conversation about all your favorite biopics. So be sure to do that. Also, maybe just some of your favorite music. Put some of that down there. Why not? We're going to put a link to some of Luke's music down below as well. So be sure to click on that so you can check him out there. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Real World, and we will see you next time.